Good morning. The March 4th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. The board continues to meet in a hybrid format. For those here in person, please take a moment to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. For those attending virtually, if you desire an opportunity to speak, we ask that you please keep yourself on mute until the chair recognizes you. When you are called upon, please announce your name and organization and speak loudly and clearly as you present. At this time, I would ask our clerk for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions for today's agenda.
Thank you. Good morning. In the absence of the Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry, Deputy Comptroller Erica McClammy will sit and vote on his behalf. I have the following announcements to make. There are no corrections for this meeting, and there are no walk-ons. There is one deferral, SB 26-10320, procurement, First Amendment to Agreement with Vanguard Utility Services, Inc. This item is being deferred to 4/1/2026 at the request of the agency. We do have one withdrawal, SB 26-10534, Mayoralty, employee travel request for Kobe Samuel. This item is being withdrawn at the request of the agency. We did receive some statement of oppositions for SB 25-14465, procurement, award sole source, clear software application. We have received statements of oppositions from a Jennifer Coons, a Margaret Chow, and a Barbette Obegi. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. This item will be on the non-routine agenda. Non-routine agenda items are as follows. SB 25-14501, biannual performance audit of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. SB 26-10516, Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, year ended June 30th, 2025, single audit, together with reports of independent public accountants for the year ended June 30th, 2025. SB 26-10006, Bureau Procurement for the MPO, unauthorized procurement, Quadrant Leasing USA, Inc., SB 26-10110 for the MPO, unauthorized procurement, Quadrant Leasing USA, SB 25-14465, procurement, award sole source, clear software application. Again, there were statements of oppositions. And also SB 26-10095, procurement, first extension, amendment, increase, case management, and tracking system. All these items will be on the non-routine agenda this morning. I have the following abstentions to note. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott will be abstaining on 26-10412, Department of Transportation, Developers Agreement number 1910A, the Johns Hopkins University, and SB 26-10134, Department of Transportation, Developers Agreement number 1966, the Johns Hopkins University. The Honorable President Z. Cohen has the following abstentions. SB 25-14465, procurement, award sole source, clear software application. SB 25-14174, police, first renewal to subscription agreement with Leads Online, LLC. And SB 26-10095, procurement, first extension, amendment, increase, case management and tracking system, and SB 26-10080, procurement, police, awards, sole source, annual maintenance for InfoShare. Deputy Comptroller Erica McClammy will be abstaining on all travel requests and travel reimbursements. Also, SB 25-14465, Procurement Awards, Sole Source, Clear Software Application. SB 25-14117, I'm sorry, let me repeat that, SB 25-14174, Police, First Renewal to Subscription Agreement with Leads Online LLC, and SB 26-10080, Procurement, Police, Award Sole Source, Annual Maintenance for InfoShare. City Solicitor Ebony Thompson has no abstentions, and the Director of Public Works, Matthew Garback, has no abstentions. Mr. President, and all members of the boards, those are all the deferrals, withdrawals, and abstentions and non-routine items for this morning's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask our, no, we already did that. I apologize. At this time, I ask for a motion to approve and adopt the opening statement as read by the clerk.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the opening statement, please say aye.
Aye.
The opening statement has been adopted. I now direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from the Council President's office dated March 4th, 2026, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items, together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by the clerk. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving the items on the routine agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The routine agenda items have been adopted. Seeing no further questions, we will now move to the non-routine agenda. The first item on the non-routine agenda is a request to approve a sole source award contract with Thomson Reuters Clear under SB 25-14465. This is a contract for commercial license plate data for the Baltimore Police Department. On behalf of the police department, we have, I believe, Colonel Herzog. Colonel Herzog, the floor is yours.
Good morning and thank you. Again, Colonel Herzog, I'm the Chief of Detectives of the Baltimore Police Department. Clear, this provides us access to public records, to proprietary data sources, provides us information in reference to people, phone numbers, addresses, asset searches, gives us the information that we're able to use to build out leads, link analysis. Another tool that's part of this is the license plate reader technology. That information is used by us for investigations. It's used by us to identify suspect vehicles in an area of a crime. Additionally, that information is obtained through Clear. Obviously, our contract with that would provide us access to that information. That information, the LPRs are they're on tow truck, repossession companies, transportation companies that obtain those reads, and then we access Clear in order to gain access to those reads. Those reads are from, are in the public, where there is no expectation of privacy, where these reads are being obtained from. They're on public roadways, no different than any other LPR system. But essentially, Clear is much more than just LPR. It provides us information about arrest records, individuals, addresses, again, phone numbers, and other publicly available information that gives us a one-stop shop to be able to utilize that information to further our investigations. It has been in use for a long time as part of the normal investigative method of all of our detectives. We've seen a significant increases across the board in clearance rates. This is one of the tools that has been used to achieve those clearance rates and some of the major benefits that we've seen of it.
Thank you, Colonel. How do we safeguard against unauthorized access to our data?
So we grant licenses for this, and so the individuals who have access to Clear, we don't put any information into the system. We access the system. The information is already publicly available in the system. There's nothing that we feed into this.
Understood. And how do we make sure, is there any method by which we make sure folks are not accessing, using our data for means that it should not be used for?
So again, we don't put any data into the system. This is the users of the system access the data that's available in the system through CLEAR.
Understood. Other questions from the board? I see Mr. Mayor and I see the city solicitor. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Colonel. I just want to just ask that question in a different way. Just state, Colonel, it would be factual that BPD or the city does not put information into this data system. We only take information out, correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Solicitor Thompson?
That was the distinction I wanted to make, but the mayor did it.
Great.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, we have received statements of opposition on this item, as our clerk noted. One from Jennifer Coonsey, who is not in attendance, and two from individuals who indicated they would attend today. First, I will call on, and I apologize if I slightly mispronounce your name, but I believe it's Babette Obvi-Ageli, to provide her testimony on this matter. Ms. Babette? Is there anyone online by that name? No. Okay. Yeah, and please, if you are online and you wish to testify, please raise your hand. Next, I will call on Margaret Chow to provide her testimony on this matter. Margaret, are you in attendance? Seeing and not hearing a Margaret Chow, I will reiterate to folks in attendance and that are online that it is extremely important to sign up for testimony on any board item. That enables the board to keep track, to make sure we are doing all of our due diligence. So as a friendly reminder to everyone, please utilize the sign-up process in advance. That said, is there anyone else? I see Mr. Shorty, Dwayne Davis. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Mr. Shorty, please go first, and then we will move to you.
My testimony.
And I apologize, Shorty. We are going to, testimony is 3 minutes, and if the Alana or whoever is, yep, if you just put up the clock. Apologies, Shorty, the floor is yours.
My testimony is from the Department of Justice. Part of my testimony is from the Department of Justice because the Baltimore City Police Department ain't did nothing to defend me. Here you go.
Hello, this is David Chambersini with the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland. We spoke yesterday concerning your information and evidence about the Baltimore City Police Department. Returning your call from this morning, sorry, we have not written to you yet involving further instructions. You wanted to wait until we received your materials. We actually did receive them today. What we're going to do right now is we're trying to find the best contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office to send these materials to. Once we get that information, I will draft you an email with just more information, some contact info, so you can check it to see how the status of that's going. If you could confirm your email address for me, I believe it's bshortman@gmail.com. But if I have that mistaken, just give me another call. I think you have my number, but it's 410-962-3228. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, so clarification. I've been doing a documentary about Baltimore City since 2006. Mayor Brandon Scott to tell you. All right, I'm registered with the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. I'm registered with the state of Maryland. I was locked up and charged with terrorism in Baltimore County for making a movie about the Baltimore City and Baltimore County Police Department. Now, I'm out $250 million in intellectual property. You took a truck, a computer, and the contents of my vehicle. I had movie releases, I had contracts. So where does the city stand on that right now? Because on October the 15th, 2015, Baltimore City Police Department came to my house and put guns in my head. Nobody did nothing about that. I'm alive and breathing by the grace of God, not the police department.
Thank you. Shorty, you want to come up and provide your testimony?
Am I going to get any conversation about this?
And if you could just state your name for the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Kenesha Daly. I am here for the license plate thing for BPD. I am against that. Right now, we're dealing with 2 community members that were killed by BPD. I just feel like it's really just, there's so many emotions. Like, we're already fighting the ICE struggle and having people not getting drugged out of their homes. Now we're giving them more tools to harass people. I'm kind of confused on that because we've been not talking about the real issues of BPD. Like, I would like a hearing to talk about the CAD system that failed instead of a new tool that they can use to rip people from their homes. Like, we have meeting about more budget for BPD, but they're not doing anything to take care of the people in the city. It's stealing money from housing, it's stealing money from kids going to school. Like, there's more investment that we can make for the quality of life instead of surveilling it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Come on up. I would note just to the prior testimony, the City Council is holding a hearing on the CAD system. I know this is something that both the mayor and I have been deeply concerned about, as well as how we respond to mental health crises. So appreciate you raising the issue. Please come on up. And if you could also state your name for the record.
Okay. Hi.
Could you just
Sorry.
lift the, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Carrie Ann Laurent. I'm in District 13. I didn't have a prepared statement. I'm not a public speaker. I think for me, a note I would like to make is there's a big difference between being seen in public and then someone being able to pull up records to know where you were every moment in public over the last 10 years. I don't really think that the BPD has shown that they have the trust of the community to have that kind of power. Also, I forget where it was, I think it was in Colorado, police officer used this technology to stalk his girlfriend. So can we trust the BPD to use this technology in a way that actually keeps us safe? I don't believe so, and I don't think that they've proven that. So I don't think they should have this, even if it's not their data, even if they're not creating the data. I don't think that they have proven to us that they would be responsible stewards if they had access to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that is present that wishes to testify on this item? Yep. There is one person online who has used the raise their hand function. If you could come, Alana, if you could have the person come on, and if you could state your name for the record, and please reset the clock. You'll have 3 minutes to testify on this item.
Thank you. My name is Zaquan Dozier. I am in District 11, and I wanted to testify to notify everyone that I am against this additional layer of surveillance by the Baltimore City Police Department. And same, the previous 2 people who mentioned, I feel like the Baltimore City Police has not really proven or built any community trust to even obtain this technology. And also we have to also worry about ICE abducting our community members as well. And I'm concerned. I would rather Baltimore City BPD not have modern tools to further violate Baltimore city residents' rights and civil rights and liberties as well. And I also feel that this is going to be more invasive technology to harass people and monitor people of their every move and where they work, and my other concern is this data would be like 10 years of retroactive license plate data. And most people that I know haven't even had their cars for that long and bought them used. And it makes you wonder, like, would they be responsible for the stuff that the past owners did? And it just opens a lot of doors that will lead to a lot of people getting hurt. And I would like to say this lastly. So City Council, if you really truly believe that we've reduced crime a lot by using harm reduction tactics like Baltimore Safe Streets and other harm reduction tactics, why do we need more police funding, more police surveillance? And rather than just investing in the community, like public transit and anything like city-owned groceries, anything else that improves the material conditions of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Zaquan. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify either in person or online? If you are online, please use the raise hand function. Seeing and hearing no one, before I call a vote, Madam Clerk, I am going to note that I am abstaining on this item as there is legislation before the City Council which has something of a nexus to this item. And so please note my abstention before I call for a vote. Are there any other questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. I abstain. Please note the Comptroller's Office as well as the City Council President as abstentions. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda is SB 2510516 from the Department of Audits. This is a request to note the annual comprehensive financial report and single audit together with reports from the independent public accountants for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 on behalf of audits. We have City Auditor Josh Pash. Mr. Pash, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, honorable board members. My name is Josh Pash. I am here today with SB & Company to present the audit of the ACFR and the single audit. The ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, is the city's official financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. This presents a full set of financial statements and supplementary information showing the city's financial position, results of operations, cash flows, etc., for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. Our job as auditors was to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement. The single audit is a comprehensive audit required of non-federal entities like the City of Baltimore that expended federal funds, grants, awards, and assistance during the fiscal year. And the purpose of our audit was to confirm the amounts presented in the schedule of expenditures of federal awards is materially accurate, and also to verify that the federal awards and grants are used in accordance with the law, grant terms, and regulations. Just want to have my team put the other presentation up. So as we're getting that ready, during the presentation, the following terms will come up during the presentation. I just wanted to give some context as those terms are being noted. So a material weakness is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting or compliance such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of financial statements will not be prevented or detected on a timely basis. A significant deficiency is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting or compliance that is less severe than a material weakness, yet important enough to merit the attention of those responsible for oversight of the financial reporting and compliance. And then as the presentation is being pulled up, I do want to thank the Department of Finance and the audit teams in their help and work on these audits. And I do want to note that both the act and the single audit were completed by the due dates this year.
Mr. Auditor, apologies, your presentation dropped from the screen.
Okay.
Just one sec.
Okay.
If it's not technical difficulties, it's not the Board of Estimates.
Huh?
I can't fix this one. He's still in there, he just.
Saquon, you are the most famous man at the BOE right now. Apologies.
Want to bet? I don't think so.
And we're back.
Okay.
Mr. Auditor, floor is
All right.
yours.
Thank you very much. Again, I just wanted to reaffirm my thank you to the Department of Finance and the audit teams for their work on this, on these audits. It was a significant undertaking, and I do want to, again, mention that the Department of Finance prepared both the act
Mr.
for-
Auditor, I apologize. Can you put the slide in presentation mode so that we can?
So we only, okay.
Oh, because it's a PDF.
Yeah.
It's fine. We'll work it out there. Y'all keep going.
Sure.
There you go.
Okay.
Please proceed.
So they did meet the due dates for both the act and the single audit this year. And I will now invite SB and Company with their partner Bill Seymour to continue the presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Seymour, welcome back. Please
you.
introduce yourself and your team, and please proceed.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Bill Seymour. I'm the overall engagement partner with SB and Company, the external auditors for the city of Baltimore. I have with me Tiana Nguyen, who is the audit partner, primarily over the single audit for us as well. This represents our required communications at the completion of an audit. If we could go to slide 3, please, which highlights the scope of services which we are engaged to perform, which was an audit of the June 30, 2025 financial statements for the city of Baltimore, as well as the separately issued enterprise fund statements, the water utility, wastewater, stormwater, as well as parking facility funds. We also performed the uniform grant guidance audit. That is a federal grant compliance audit over federal funds, and prepared the data collection form that takes the single audit and puts it in a fit and format for the federal government. We also provided a report on internal controls over financial reporting, which included our observations and recommendations. Included in the city's annual comprehensive financial report are the pension trust funds for the employees' retirement system, elected officials' retirement system, fire and police retirement system. Those audits were performed by other auditors, and our audit relied upon those opinions. Additionally, Baltimore City Public School System, as well as Baltimore Hotel Corporation, were audited by other auditors, and our audit relied upon those opinions. However, for Baltimore City Public School System, the city made certain changes to record the school system's share of the net pension and net OPEB liabilities, expense, and related deferred outflows and inflows. We performed audit procedures and took responsibility for those adjustments. Next slide, please. Summary of the results. We've issued an unmodified, or if you will, clean opinion on the financial statements. That's the best opinion that we are allowed to issue under generally accepted auditing standards. We discovered no instances of material fraud. I would caution our audit is not a fraud audit. That would be different in scope. However, professional standards and firm standards require that we make certain inquiries. We test for items. We look for it in areas that we test. And through those procedures, we did not note any material instances. We did receive full cooperation from management and had access to all the information that we needed to get to be able to issue that opinion. As the city auditor mentioned earlier, we issued the financial statements prior to the December 31st deadline, so the city could submit those to the Government Finance Officers Association for the award, as well as completed the single audit within 30 days after completion of the annual comprehensive financial report. However, we did note 7 material weaknesses related to internal controls over financial reporting. The first 6 are carryovers from prior years, the overall financial reporting function, cash and cash equivalents, grant accounting, water and wastewater billing, fixed assets, information technology. The city is making strides in those areas, but has not cleared, if you will, the hurdle for us to remove the material weakness. We did have one new material weakness related to debt accounting and compliance. The water and wastewater funds were out of compliance with certain debt covenants requiring certain disclosures within the financial statements. Those items were not originally present in there, and so as part of, almost think of it as an audit adjustment, and as a result, we have issued a material weakness related to that. Tiana?
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Tiana Nguyen, and I served as one of the audit partners on this year's audit. If we go ahead and proceed to slide 5, I will present the audit results for the Uniform Grant Guidance Audit, or the single audit. We tested 13 programs that were determined to be major in accordance with Uniform Grant Guidance. The testing of those 13 programs provided us with approximately 80% total coverage of the federal expenditures during fiscal year 2025. We issued qualified opinions on 4 of those programs. That's the Housing Opportunity for Persons with AIDS program, the WIOA cluster program, the American Rescue Plan Act, and an STD prevention grant. The remaining 9 programs did receive clean, unmodified opinions as it relates to compliance with federal provisions. However, there were 8 identified significant deficiencies across those programs, and they can be summarized by activities allowed as it relates to certain payroll costs charged to federal grants. There were 4 significant deficiencies related to reporting of certain information back to federal granting agencies, as well as 3 instances related to the monitoring of subrecipient awards or funds passed to subrecipients. On slide 6, you'll see the summary of the 4 programs that received the qualified opinions. You'll note 3 of those related to subrecipient monitoring, and the 4th one related to reporting. On slide 7, some of the things that contributed to those reportable findings would be a lack of evidence to support subrecipient monitoring was performed, late or incomplete submission of certain reports due back to those federal agencies, and then inadequate documentation to support certain costs charged to the federal programs, certain payroll costs. On slide 8, we've included this in the materials to be able to depict a 5-year look back of the summary of findings across not only just the financial statements themselves or the ACFR, but also related to the individual programs. And we've included here a summary by year, using those 5 years, on the number of material weaknesses compared to the number of significant deficiencies that have existed over that time. And that concludes really the end of the executive summary section. As was mentioned, we have met with the various persons responsible for both the ACFR audit as well as the Uniform Grant Guidance audit to present these findings, and corrective action plans were included within the single audit report that Bill mentioned was submitted as part of the data collection form back to the Federal Clearinghouse.
We'll take any questions that anybody may have.
I'm going to start. In addressing many of the recurrent material weaknesses, the city has discussed steps it's taken to strengthen procedures and put new measures in place to improve fiscal controls. Have you all evaluated whether the city is making incremental progress? And if so, do you expect that the city can resolve any of the recurrent material weaknesses by next year's audit?
The short answer is yes. Through the course of the audit, we were able to be provided information much more timely, which allowed us to complete the audit timely. We see improvement in the different areas and items that were there. One item for history to mention is the completion of the 24 audit was late in the year for 25, which allowed only so much time for changes to be put in. Our expectation is that management will continue to make improvements. However, Mr. Council President, I can't look into the future to give you a guarantee, but if the momentum that is started continues, we expect that these will start falling off as we get into future periods.
In the single audit, your team noted a continuing material weakness over financial reporting and observed, and I want to quote, "The Finance Department does not have the authority to enforce timely preparation and reconciliation of activity and account balances from departments. The city continues to face challenges, making it difficult to properly track property tax receivables, water billing, and capital assets." Can you please explain what this means in plain language? Also, and noting that the administration is proposing some significant changes in property taxes, Can you tell us the effect of this weakness specifically on our accounting of property tax receivables?
So in our testing of property tax receivables, we did not note any issues in supporting the amount. So I would anticipate any changes that are made would not present an issue. The city is a large and diverse and kind of decentralized organization where you have different departments running programs and items, and then we have a central accounting function that will go through and make the close entries. History has shown us that there has been a disconnect between what happens in one side versus the departments. I know that the city has worked hard to, through the implementation of Workday, to alleviate those items. As I mentioned earlier, we have seen improvements in those areas. Our expectation is that would continue, and we would report back at the conclusion of the 26 audit on the results for those.
Understood. Can you explain why I'm going to talk about the wastewater utility fund questions. Can you explain why we did not have adequate debt service coverage for the wastewater utility fund? Did we have failed collections? Did we overspend? Or was it some other cause? And most importantly, please explain what this means for customer rates. We know that Baltimoreans are already struggling with all measures of affordability. I was up in Annapolis yesterday talking about energy and gas, and we know that this is a time of real challenge for folks' pocketbooks. So I wanted to know if we are able to address the debt coverage issue. Are we able to do that without rate increases?
So as far as the analytics on what the determination for fiscal year 26 and forward items, I would defer to management on those. For the FY25, the results for the year, unfortunately, the revenue expenses outpaced revenue for the year. So in some cases, we would call that a overspending that occurred, which then put the water fund in a negative position compared to debt service costs, principal, and interest, that we did not maintain the debt service coverage ratio to be there. Historically, this has happened in the past, has been corrected through a series of rate increases as well as monitoring of spending. My understanding is that there was a rate increase that was put in place for the current year. We have not seen information for 26 to be able to say that was alleviated. However, that will be one of the first items that we look at as part of the 26 audit to otherwise be there.
That is certainly a concern. Again, this city council in particular has been deeply concerned about affordability for the residents of this city. I'm going to go to the mayor, and then I have a few more questions as well.
No, thank you, Mr. President. I just think it's important that the department talk about this. I know that this is a conversation that you and I have had and that we said before, but I think the residents and everyone has to remember that this system only has what is put into it. The wastewater utility that's not connected to property taxes, is not connected to parking fines or anything like that. It's only what is in that system. And with the level of consent decrees, 2 of them, and all the things that we're required to, this is something that myself and the administrator have been talking to Director Garbrock and the team at DPW about, but I wanted to have him or either Deputy Director Robinson address these points specifically.
Understood, and we will absolutely get to response from agencies. I was glad to read in the audit that the administration has developed plans to improve how we monitor debt coverage requirements and track monthly expenditures, but I am concerned that apparently these measures were not already in place or were inadequate. Can you explain why our existing fiscal controls were unable to detect the failure to meet coverage test requirements?
We don't know the specific process or item that broke in the review of the finalized information, where that was, those calculations were otherwise performed by management. Once we identified the issue, we put it on the table with management, and once it was there, it was discussed, and I know that the management immediately developed a plan to alleviate the item. Long and short of it, it was not included as a disclosure in the draft of the financial statements. That was provided as a GAAP requirement when you have a deficiency in a debt covenant or any similar type of covenant. That is a disclosure item.
Understood. Has the independent audit team seen the plans the administration has developed to strengthen fiscal controls over the wastewater utility fund, and do you believe they will be adequate to strengthen our controls such that we can clear the material weakness you identified?
We have seen those. Those are included as part of the corrective action plans that were submitted as part of the single audit response, inclusion of the material weakness that was provided by us. The proof will, if you will forgive me, the proof will be in the pudding based upon the activities that management puts forth. If management does the items that they have planned to do, we believe that those items will alleviate the material weaknesses. However, if management takes this as success, that they've made the deadline, those types of things, and it marks this as the bar, it can become a very slippery slope that we can eventually, we may end up sliding backwards. Our understanding, conversations, everything, that is not the case. So our expectation is that our reporting will get smaller in the future because we will have less findings as a result of the improvements that management is putting in place.
Understood. Before moving to the administration's response, I do want to see if there are any other questions from the board. I see the mayor. You want to jump in?
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you all for your partnership and always for providing me personally with a deep briefing. Just to make sure I heard this correctly, the overall rating or grade that you gave the city on this audit is the highest one that we can receive?
Yeah, so we've issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, which effectively says that the financial statements as presented by management are reasonably free of material misstatement.
Thank you. And just your second part, even though I know this wasn't a fraud one, that you guys saw no inclination that there was fraud about.
So no material fraud. Yep. Once again, however, our audit is not a fraud audit. That would be different in scope.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. President. All my questions are for agencies.
Understood. Other questions from the board? Seeing and hearing none, thank you very much for this comprehensive report, for the work that you do with the comptroller's team, first and foremost, with the mayor and the administration, and with my team as well. It is deeply appreciated. On behalf of the administration, thank you. On behalf of the administration, and don't go anywhere because we may have further questions.
I'll be right here.
Great. On behalf of the administration, we have Director of the Department of Finance, Director Michael Moxton. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Comptroller, board members. My name is Michael Moxton. I'm the Director of the Department of Finance. I will start by saying that this is not the finish line. This is the starting line of getting to the place we want to be with our audited financial statements. Just to look back for a moment at where we were last year and the year before and the year before, going all the way back to the 2010s, we were balancing our books. We were getting the numbers right. It was just taking too long. We were getting our reporting out past deadline, and that has a knock-on effect on the plans that we put together to lift the findings. That has an effect on the grants that we claim at the federal level. And the first step was to get out of that hole. This is a problem that's larger than us. The field of accounting nationally has been short on people for a long time, and half of the jurisdictions out there nationally, according to a recent study, are not meeting their deadlines. That was the first thing we had to do in order to create a plan to lift these findings. And you'll see in a moment that there is real progress that's already starting on how many findings we had this year compared to how many we had last year. It was a team effort. I want to give a huge thank you to the Audits Department, to our partners at SB, and also to all of the agencies that we work with hand in hand in the Department of Finance in order to get this done. We shifted the entire schedule by 5 months in a single year, and we got it done. So thank you to everybody, but like I said, this is just the beginning. I'm gonna pass it over to my team to go through the details, starting with our Director of Grants Management, Ashley Meyer.
Thank you. Good morning. Ashley Meyer, Director of Grants Management in the Grants Management Office. If we could go to the next slide. So overall, you heard from SB and Company the summary of the findings. We did citywide have 7 findings. We resolved 1 finding from fiscal 24, and we got, we resolved 2 findings from fiscal 24, and we did receive 1 new finding overall for fiscal 25. Next slide. Programmatically, so the part of the audit that looks at all of the different programs by agency, I wanted to point out on this slide just a difference year over year, fiscal 24 to fiscal 25. In fiscal 24, our audit covered 9 major programs, and in fiscal 25, our audit covered 13 major programs. So the scope of our audit increased, and we actually had fewer findings than we did in fiscal 24. In fiscal 24, as you can see, we had 20 programmatic findings. 7 of those were new. And then in fiscal 25, we had 13 programmatic findings and 6 were new. We were also able to resolve more of our findings this year than we were last year. So last year we were able to resolve 4. This year we were able to resolve 13. So this is my favorite slide because this does show that the scope, the work that the Department of Finance and the agencies did to present all of the material timely and accurately increased the scope of the programmatic audit, and we ended up having fewer findings overall. Next slide. So this is just a visual that shows that. This is a comparison fiscal 24 to fiscal 25. As you can see, the total number of our findings did go down, and the total number of material weaknesses also went down. I also want to point out that the total number of significant deficiencies also went down as well. So again, bigger scope, fewer findings. Next slide. So this year, the Department of Finance, in partnership with the Deputy City Administrator's Office and all of the agencies, we were able to put together an on-time ACFR and single audit. We were able to hit all of our year-end deadlines and, as a result, reduce some of our compliance and reporting risks. Next slide. So how did we do that? So at the start of the fiscal year, so July of this year, noting that the fiscal 24 audit ended in the middle of at the middle of the calendar year 25, we put together a citywide calendar for the CIFA preparation and the audit preparation with specific deliverables, specific deadlines and timelines, all of the support resources that every agency would need to access to obtain all of the material for those deadlines, and the DCA was able to distribute that citywide. We worked with all of the agencies to make sure that we stayed on top of that schedule throughout the entire audit and CIFA preparation. My team, the Grants Management Office, we coordinated with agencies well in advance to identify all of our fiscal 25 federal subrecipients and pass-through entities for the CFA. So this is something that we haven't done before, but we worked with all of the agencies, and I do want to thank all of the agencies for their cooperation in doing this, but we spent 3 months in advance identifying all of those federal subrecipients, making sure their information in Workday is correct, because Workday is our source of truth for the audit and the CFA, and updating all of their federal information, their UEIs, unique entity identifiers, their SAM.gov registration. So all of that was updated 3 months in advance. My team, the Grants Management Office, in partnership with the Bureau of Accounting and Payroll, we hosted training sessions, 4 training sessions, on how to do this work, how to identify the pass-through expenditures, how we were going to ask people to gather the information, where they were going to put it, how they were going to identify their subrecipients. Those sessions were recorded, and they had supplemental material, and we were able to have those so that those resources would be available for those who weren't even able to attend the trainings. We also had tele-office hours where we were able to sit down with people and help them go through that and get that information. My team and the Bureau of Accounting, we also underwent an effort to get all of the subaward general ledger supporting documentation together in advance of the CFA preparation. Because in order to put together the CFA, all of the agencies need to be able to support those numbers with their general ledgers. So we spent these 3 months not only identifying the pass-throughs, the subawards, the subrecipients, but helping agencies get their general ledger materials. We also worked very closely with all of the agencies on their corrective action plans. We made sure that we had a coordinated effort where the Department of Finance would partner with all of the agencies to make sure that we were there as they communicated with SB and Company, and then as they put together their corrective action plans, we had them share those with us in advance of submission so that we could make sure we're all doing the same work, that we're not creating new SOPs where they don't need to exist, that we're not creating new policy where it doesn't need to exist, that we're making sure we're using the citywide policies, procedures, tools in advance so that we are doing the same thing and that we're all aware of what we need to do to implement these corrective actions. And then also my colleague, the acting chief of BAPS, they were able to hire many more grant accounting staff, and I don't know if Danielle, you want to talk about that at all, but we were able to hire more staff in BAPS so that we had the support we needed to do this work. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Acting Chief Tillman.
Good morning. I'm Danielle Tillman, Acting Chief of the Bureau of Accounting and Payroll Services. I am going to go over the citywide financial findings and the planned corrective actions that we plan to take as a city to prevent future findings. The first finding is finding 001, which is the material weakness over financial reporting. The city has significant post-year adjustments to its fiscal year 2025 financial statements. Such adjustments relate to errors, both material and immaterial, undiscovered throughout the fiscal year. There were significant delays in adequately reconciling cash, investments, receivables, capital assets, debt, and activity within the proprietary funds. So the city's plan is to develop and publish a formal standard operating procedures for fund closeouts and reporting projected to be completed by June 30th of 2026. Also develop more enhanced monthly reconciliation processes by March 31st, 2026. We have already started with the implementation of some of those month-end tasks. We have started running financial reports for each fund as far as the month-end tasks. The month-end close. We also have started making sure that all bank reconciliations for all operating cash are completed at month-end close. We also continue to recruit specialized staff to strengthen cash, payroll, receivables, capital assets, and fund reporting functions. In August of 2025, as Ashley has mentioned, we hired a capital and grants accounting manager contributing to the improved CFO reporting and a reduction in related audit findings. So we had, in previous years, we had a CFO reporting for the last 10 years that we did not have in FY25. Next slide. The second finding we had was in material weakness over cash and cash equivalents. The city did not complete a thorough review of the general ledger activity for certain cash and cash-related accounts, resulting in a significant post-closing adjustment to its fiscal year 2025 financial statements. There was a variance in bank reconciliations that were not documented when compared to the general ledger. So the Department of Finance is developing standard operating procedures for bank reconciliation, but also like I said before, we have started making sure that all operating cash is reconciled monthly. In addition to that, all non-operating bank accounts and investment accounts will start to be also reconciled monthly to avoid these enormous amount of post-year adjustments. Next slide. The third finding we had was the material weakness over a grant accounting function. After the fiscal year closed, the city recorded adjustments to grant accounts receivable and deferred revenue that alter balances previously reported for the end of the fiscal year. As a result, the balances reported during the year were not accurate. Department of Finance is developing standard operating procedures for monthly grant reconciliation, and that has already taken place. We are meeting recurring meetings with the operating agencies. Our grants matter is, as we speak, are meeting with agencies to help them reconcile their monthly grants and also to do their billing on time. We are partnering with GMO to implement monitoring and verification procedures in September 2025 to ensure that agencies enter billing milestones in their award setup to confirm policy adherence, requiring 2 milestones per award at setup. Starting in March 2026, the Grants Management Office and BAPS to host quarterly citywide coordination meetings to proactively assess accuracy of agency service and monitoring materials and general grant management and accounting. Next finding is for material weakness over water and wastewater accounting. There were water and wastewater accounts that remained unbilled since the system had been implemented. Several accounts have been billed inconsistently. The city's water and wastewater utility system cannot establish accurate water and wastewater utility revenue and accounts receivable balances without manually calculating adjustments. This creates a greater risk of error due to manual adjustments. In the first 6 months of FY26, DPW successfully billed an average of 99.5% of the accounts on time. The billing system follows automated processes and is consistently billing most accounts on schedule and accurately. While there are a limited number of accounts which were billed timely, it is typically due to issues such as a data discrepancy, account status change, or customer specific exception. To further address this finding, in FY26, DPW will draft formal written procedures for waste and wastewater utility billing in accordance with the automated policies operating in the billing system. Including within these policies will be guidance on effectively monitoring capital projects to ensure account compliance and mitigate risk. Written procedures will be developed and implemented by December 2026. We had a material weakness over fixed assets accounting. There were 2 significant post-close adjustments recorded to fixed assets to correct year-end reporting for capitalized assets, including write-offs of construction in progress. In September 2025, the city began to develop formal written capital accounting policies and procedures, starting with the closeout of capital projects. Department of Finance initiated weekly meetings with city agencies to review capital projects and processes, provide training and support agencies, capital project managers in completing timely monthly reconciliation and reducing post-year adjustments. We are currently also have recurring meetings with the agencies for the capital projects, as I stated. These post-year adjustments in 2025 were one-time adjustments that we do not foresee having to make in FY26. Even though this is a repeat finding, there has been much progress in this area, and we do foresee that this won't be a finding in FY26. And for material weakness over information technology security, the review of cybersecurity preparedness also revealed that while component risk assessments had been performed, an enterprise-wide risk assessment was not performed during the audit period. In August 2025, the Vulnerability Management Team further institutionalized improvements by implementing a recurring remediation cadence with agencies, ensuring more sustained progress. In August 2025, the Baltimore City Office of Information Technology and the Department of Finance jointly funded a new Director of Revenue Systems Architecture to oversee the mainframe upgrade and disaster recovery testing. The software upgrade is planned for the fourth quarter of FY26, followed by a disaster recovery test at a secondary data center in the first quarter of FY27. Enterprise-wide risk assessment is planned for completion in the second quarter of FY27. This last citywide finding is the one new finding that we had for this year. This is a material weakness over debt accounting and compliance. During the fiscal year 2025, the wastewater fund did not have adequate debt service coverage to be in compliance with the required revenue bond covenants. Non-compliance with the debt service coverage covenant was not discovered until after year-end closing. By the third quarter of FY26, DPW and Department of Finance will jointly develop written procedures that define roles and how debt compliance metrics will be monitored on an ongoing basis. In the fourth quarter FY26, draft written procedures will be finalized and fully implemented in early FY27. DPW, in coordination with the Department of Finance, will establish a formal documented process to review and monitor the revenue collections and expenditures trends monthly to ensure covenant compliance and to provide information to ensure timely operational adjustments. Ashley, did you want to go over the programmatic findings? Yeah.
So programmatically, these are the findings that involve the agencies and the programs that were audited. As a reminder, it's those 13 programs. As you can see on the slide, overall, the findings included issues with a missing UEI, unique entity identifier, and federal award identification numbers, subrecipient monitoring and reporting, documentation and reporting submissions, and then supervisory review of payroll transactions. So every agency did issue a corrective action plan. As I mentioned, we worked with every single agency to look at their corrective action plans in advance of their submission to make sure that they all address the recent changes that the Department of Finance has made in some of these areas, most notably the new administrative manual policies that involve some of these things. So we worked with everybody to make sure their corrective action plans reflected that, and we also encouraged everyone to start putting individuals responsible for different actions in their corrective action plans, as well as performance metrics, so that we can start to really gauge if these things are moving the needle. We are going to be tracking all of this regularly. We did start tracking the status of corrective action plans for fiscal 24, so we're going to continue to do that for fiscal 25 and beyond. Go ahead.
This next slide just talks about some of the timelines for the new fiscal, for the FY26 audit cycle. The timelines are starting now, as we are starting now. Audit doesn't just take place at year end. It is something that we need to do throughout the year. So this is just kind of overview of what is to come. We continue to make progress. As the auditors have stated, as Ashley has stated, we want to build on the momentum and keep this and keep the findings going in the right direction. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. and thank you to the team. Just to start, Mr. Moxon, does the administration dispute or disagree with any of the findings in the single audit?
No, we do not dispute any of the findings. And again, we want to thank our partners in SB.
Great. The report cited material weakness over financial reporting and specifically pointed to quote, significant post-year end adjustments and delays in reconciling cash, debt, and other cash flow activities. How does the administration respond to that finding? What is the corrective plan for us in response, and what does a timeline for that corrective plan look like?
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and pass back to Dan.
The city is in the process of developing, excuse me, I'm sorry, in the process of developing the operating procedures for monthly reconciliation. So we're starting now. We expect that the monthly reconciliation process to be something that we put in effect at month-end close, starting at the end of March. We have already started the reconciliation of grants and the capital projects, and all of these reconciliations doing it monthly will prevent all these, excuse me, the post-year end adjustments that we are seeing in the numbers currently. Just as I stated before, historically, a lot of our bank accounts and things that are non-operating, we historically only did adjustments at the end of the year. We are changing that, and in effect, in April, we will be doing those as well monthly. So we will, to avoid and prevent the amount of post-year end adjustments. So these things are being implemented now, and we should start to see the changes at the end of this fiscal year and going into FY27.
The report cited material weakness over grant accounting and management functions. The administration amended the administrative manual section related to grants management in 2025 after similar findings from our own biennial audit. Will these findings require additional changes or amendments?
I can take that one.
Sure.
My team is always looking to review all of the administrative manual policies that pertain to grants, and we are constantly reviewing those to make sure that they are always up to date and reflect exactly what we need the city of Baltimore to do. We don't anticipate that we will need to create any new administrative manual policies at this time. Right now, we're focusing on making sure that the ones that exist are implemented and adopted, and any changes that need to be made in those policies, we will continue to do our regular reviews.
The report cited material weaknesses in our water and wastewater accounting and debt compliance related to the wastewater utility fund. That is obviously a concern. What is our assessment of the risk and the activities cited here? What's your assessment of the risk to our bond rating, to the system, Mr. Moxon?
Absolutely. The Department of Finance is going to be working very closely with the Department of Public Works on getting to a perpetually strong place going forward. Obviously, you don't like to see missed coverage. We've been discussing it with the ratings agencies, and there was an impact on specifically that utilities bond rating, unfortunately, of a couple of notches from S&P. That has not extended to any of the city's other bond ratings, and they recognize that we have a very explicit plan to both build coverage back up and to make sure that these one-off events like a spike in spending or a dip in revenue are seen earlier and don't create this kind of accounting issue at the end of the year. It's just a matter of implementing it, and we've already begun implementing it. So we will be working weekly with DPW for the remainder of the year to make sure that we're in a strong place in 26.
I appreciate that. I do have to say I feel a little sense of deja vu here, where it is imperative that we get all of this analysis right. We know this This has bedeviled the residents of Baltimore, the city, for a very, very long time. It is extremely important that, as you said, the corrections are made and we don't have any kind of misaligned analysis or anything, and that we have accurate readings for meters. Are we now back in compliance with the debt service requirements, or if not, when do you expect us to come into compliance? Second question, will maintaining debt service coverage requirements necessitate any change in customer water, wastewater utility rates?
Mr. President?
I'm going to go to Board Member Garbark for a quick moment, and then we'll go back to you, Mr. Moxley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I can speak to this for a couple of minutes. So obviously, last year we came with some rate increases. Most of that was focused on the wastewater utility. We had spent over $250 million over the last couple of years in the plant improvements themselves. That put a lot of stress on the wastewater utility. We're seeing that continue now. The main issue here, though, is in one particular area, that is our biosolids processing. If you look at the rest of the wastewater utility, we are nearly flat in terms of our cost, personnel, other contracts. That was all factored in to our rate projections. The biosolids costs, basically, to be very brief, require a heat drying of the sludge that comes from the plant. Those dryers have not been working. We have been trying and working with our contractual partner, Synagro, to get that up and running. One of the issues is we have digestion at Back River. That has been offline as part of the improvements to the plants. We are trying as hard as we can to bring digestion back online. As soon as we can get all of these working, we are going to be able to get these dryers functioning. If the dryers function, basically this issue goes away overnight. So that's really the main issue. Now, on the opposite side, as Director Moxton mentioned, we are looking at revenue options for continuing our collections as well as cost containment. But the big issue really right now has been our biosolids and how we have had to handle them. The process we're using is a lot more expensive than the drying process. They basically have to be landfilled and trucked out of state right now.
Director Garbark, just so I'm clear here, the biosolids, that is the process that takes place at Back River and involves essentially taking the sludge that we receive and remediating it and then putting it back in. Where does it just fill us in a little bit here?
So the purpose of the plan is basically to remove as much, if not all, solids from the wastewater so that we can discharge clean wastewater effluent back into our waterways. The solids that come from there, we built those two large eggs at Back River. Those solids then go through digestion. Theoretically, they're supposed to. That takes nutrients out of that, creates energy that we then use to put back into the plant. Digestion has been down. The dryers then are intended to use the digested sludge. They dry them, and then they go to a pelletizing factory where they pelletize them into small things that can be used as grade A fertilizer, other things in agricultural processes. Since the dryers aren't working, none of that can happen. So what happens is there's more water content, which makes the weight for transport higher, and it cannot be pelletized. So what happens is we are paying for higher transportation costs, and we are paying for having to tip them in landfills that are out of state. Many landfills are not taking this product much anymore throughout the country. So it is imperative that we get dryers back up and running. That's part of digestion. It's also part of we're looking at is source tracking to make sure there's no illicit discharges from other things. In the past, we have found people have been discharging things into the sewer system that are not appropriate, gasoline, diesel fuel, other stuff. We have a source tracking program that we're trying to get that so we get the highest quality product to them to keep those dryers functioning.
Director Garbark, how long have we known about this deficiency? And just for the viewing public and for my edification, could you connect the inability to do the process that you just enumerated with the continued deficiency or challenge fulfilling debt obligations, debt service?
Yeah, absolutely. So our budget has budgeted dryers. And basically, if they meet a threshold in terms of the types of chemicals, the types of products, the other types of things that are found in the sludge, the dryers are operational. If they exceed that, there are a couple things, volatile organic compounds, hydrocarbons, things that could be combustible or things that could be damaging. If they exceed that level, then the dryers are not functioning and what's called alternative processing is taking place. We have budgeted and have been working to try to get the dryers operating. The tests that are coming from the laboratories, the other things are showing some of these areas are spiking, which is why the dryers have not been working. That additional cost is unbudgeted cost, basically. So when we're paying that additional cost, that goes directly against what our coverage ratio is, which brings us under that level.
Understood. Let me just repeat the first part of my question, which is how long have we known about this?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, when the plants had their issues, there was actually a fire at the Synagro facility that took that facility offline for about 6 months. We completely understood drying could not function then and completely agreed with it. Once the plants started operating again, we have been working to try to ensure drying is consistent and continuing. Our plan, our hope was to completely have this in place for the last couple of years, but it has been intermittent. Dryers have been on, and then other times they've been off, and trying to work on a consistent process with the contractual partners has been a key. So we knew that there were some issues a couple years ago. The plants have now been improved. Our belief was that that was providing a strong product, and that has not necessarily been the case.
So when are we going to get, what I'm hearing here is that we need new dryers, is
No.
that?
So we need the sludge to be dried. So part of that is digestion.
Right.
We're getting 30% digestion within the next month at Back River.
Got it.
That is going to hopefully allow the dryers to start operating. Dryers are there, they can operate. The problem is the materials that are being put in the dryers are not appropriate for those dryers that could cause harm or could be flammable.
Yep. So I just wanted to interject here because I
Hang
do.
on, one second.
Okay.
Just one more question.
I
on
wanted
this.
to clarify.
Yeah, so just trying to make the story in my head. The deficiency is it has not been able to correct the issue with the sludge coming in, and that these dryers, which are functional and are the appropriate tool, maybe city administrator or Ms. Garbark, you could help me understand just, so what's the gap? Like, what's the missing piece that we don't have?
Sure. So I wouldn't refer to it as a deficiency, and I want to make sure that this is clear for the viewing public. What we have here, in particular at Back River and with our biosolids processing, is we've budgeted a particular amount. We have a contract with Synagro. That contract comes to the Board of Estimates. Synagro is responsible for doing the drying. As a part of their contract, they have the ability, if they do testing on their own, to go to alternative drying methods. They started going to alternative drying methods. Alternative drying methods are more expensive than the traditional drying methods. Based off of their tests, they believed that they needed to do the alternative drying methods. There was some concern and back and forth between the city and Synagro around the need to do alternative drying methods. I believe we did our own testing. We weren't seeing what Synagro was seeing. So this is an ongoing matter that we're addressing through legal and ongoing conversations with Synagro, because again, they are charging us for the more expensive processing, because when they do their own tests, they are saying that there are these chemicals, there are these materials that are inappropriate for using traditional drying methods. So this is an ongoing issue that we have with Synagro. We will continue to work to resolve it. We've been at the table with them having conversations about what this looks like, but the cost is more than what we budgeted. It's double. It's double than what we budgeted, and it's very expensive. And there are not many alternatives outside of the current work that we're doing with Synagro. So again, we're working to address this. If we can bring this back to our traditional drying methods, then the debt service coverage ratio issue that we have, it won't be, we won't have as many expenses, so we won't be over our DSCR. But until then, we are also going to put additional strategies in place so that we are increasing revenue and have even more of a cushion, so that we won't be in this position in the future. But what Matt is speaking to are, we saw a much higher expense for biosolids processing, which is what put us over the top in this particular year.
Okay, so just so I'm clear here, so we contract with Synagro to do this process to get the sludge to be the biosolids. They are having to use an alternative process in order.
Deciding to use, or not have, that's the dispute.
Okay, so they are using an alternative process, which therefore jacks up the cost on the contract, and then makes it so that we, let me just get to, I guess, like, so just help me understand, what is the fix here? Like, is it that we force Synagro to behave differently? Is it?
So I'll turn it over to Matt, but I want to make sure, because we are now getting, into the weeds on Synagro and biosolids processing, and I just want to make sure that and I can pause here. Thank you. So I want to spend time on this, and we absolutely will offer you a more detailed briefing on just the biosolids processing and what exactly we're seeing at Synagro, the type of materials that they are saying are causing us to go to the alternative drying methods. But let me just go to bring this up to the top, because I want to make sure that our residents at home and those folks that might be viewing understand this issue more broadly and what we are doing as a city to address it. So what we are seeing on the Synagro side is absolutely a driver as far as our expenses related to the utility. And so we have to manage those expenses with Synagro. In addition, we are also putting in strategies so that we can raise our revenue with our own internal sources, right? So that means going after those accounts that we have not been able to collect on. We've talked to this board and this body about collection strategies and what we've been doing around commercial accounts and the like, also looking at government and quasi-government accounts as well. So we're going to be even more aggressive on the collection side. There may be some hard choices and decisions that this board and the mayor and myself will have to make around collections, but we are going to make sure that we are going above and beyond on our collections as well. So that's an additional strategy that will help us raise revenue. We also have to have cost containment as well. And what I'm pretty sure I've said this to the board, and I know I've said this to the team, what we will not do in the city of Baltimore is compromise compliance with the Clean Water Act. We are going to provide quality drinking water for the residents of the city of Baltimore, and that may be more costly to us as far as ensuring that our plants are in compliance, but that is the purpose of the 2 consent decrees that we are currently managing. It has put our facilities, quite frankly, in the best place that they've been in a very long time, where we are exceeding, the affluent levels that higher than what we've done in past years. So we have high-quality plants, and we are producing high-quality water, and we will need to continue to stay in compliance, again, with the Clean Water Act. But there are more things that we will do on our side to, again, bring costs down, like with the case of Synagro, as well as raise revenue. So Synagro is a big piece of it. It is not the only piece, and so I just wanted to just mention more broadly the strategy about reducing costs as well as raising revenue. But the Director Garbark can provide a little bit more detail on the Synagro piece.
Mr. President.
Let me just respond to that real quick, and then if you want to close out the Synagro piece. Fully understand and appreciate the need to remain compliant with our consent decrees. There is no question, I think, in anyone's mind that it is absolutely essential that this board, this city, this administration, this city council does not in any way skirt a consent decree, nor could we, although given who is in charge of the EPA, all I will say is that it is extremely important to the members of this board that we remain in compliance with the EPA and with any consent decree that the city of Baltimore is under, regardless of who is in charge in Washington, D.C. That said, though, I want to just briefly touch on two pieces that you raised. One is we had a very robust conversation about a year ago about collections and understanding the need for us to be honest about, especially on the commercial side, but really for all of our customers, level setting the expectations that at the end of the day, we have to maintain this system, which means that folks have to pay their bills, which means that we want to be thoughtful, we want to be sensitive, we do not want to put any of our residents, particularly our more vulnerable residents, in any kind of harm, but we have to have a system that is fair, that is equitable, that is just. We have within DPW the Water for All program, and so I want to just concur with your point, and for a later date, it is essential that we have a collection system that is going after the folks that are not paying. Particularly, we hear often about the biggest violators, the hotel that doesn't pay its water bill for a really long time. I think that piece is absolutely essential, and look forward to a very robust conversation as we start heading into budget season about what that collections work looks like within the agency and within the city generally. Where I will just raise my own concern is, again, we know that this is a time of tough choices for Baltimoreans. We know that last year we raised rates on water. It is my sincere hope, and for me as chair of this board, that we do not do it again, that we are able to internally manage any kind of fiscal challenge within our wastewater, and not continue to have residents have to shoulder more and more burden. Just knowing what so many Baltimoreans are experiencing right now and the tough choices that folks are making, I just want to say, for the record, that that would be extremely concerning for me, and I know for members of this board. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, we appreciate you, and appreciate you concurring with the administrator and the approach. Listen, Director Garbark, Deputy Mayor, City Administrator, and I have talked extensively, and they have gone out. Remember, we were talking about a few years ago, talking about, for example, the Ritz-Carlton that had never gotten a water bill, right? And now we're at the point where we're talking about collecting on those folks and collecting on any and everybody who owes this system money. And to your point, that is going to it will come to a time where there's going to have to be tough decisions, right? Because what we will need from you and your leadership, Mr. President, is when some business that a member of the council loves or the community loves isn't paying their bill and we cut it off, we're going to need you and your role in leadership to say no. They have to pay their bill. Just because everyone loves this place does not mean that they don't have to pay their water bill. Just because they have influence in the community doesn't mean they don't have to pay their water bill. I have been, as you know, in City Hall 19 years and have seen how this conversation has went over these now almost 2 decades, where everyone's saying that we don't as you and none of us do, want rates to rise. But when it comes to collections in particular, that's where people get fuzzy. Well, people get quiet and loud at the same time, where they quietly say to whoever the DPW director is at that time, well, can you look out for this person or that person? Can you cut it back on, even though they haven't paid their water bill in 6 months, a year? We're going to get to that point, and we have to know that there is no pretty way to hold somebody accountable who owes the city thousands and thousands of dollars for their water bill. We have to cut it off. And when we do that, people are going to have to show true leadership and say, no, we have to be exactly what you said, Mr. President. We have to be fair. We have to be equitable. The rest of the system cannot continue to pull people who just refuse to pay their bills.
No, and I appreciate that comment and would just concur again that this is about hard choices, and it is about having the will to hold folks accountable. In the same way we are seeing tremendous gains in our criminal justice system, it is also important that folks, simply put, have to pay their bills. Otherwise, as we see, someone else ends up paying it, right? So I think that point is extremely well taken, where I will continue to raise concern and will push is we have to do that work, and we have to make sure we are not continuing to have residents shoulder increased rate increases over increased rate increases. I appreciate the work and was glad to hear in the auditing report that the administration is doing to try to lower the overall property tax rate for the city of Baltimore. While there has been good and healthy dialogue and back and forth about how we get there, but at the end of the day, folks feel it in their pocket, whether, and I hear your point about this is just this utility, but whether it is a tax increase, whether it's a fee increase, whether it's a water bill increase, whether it's a BGE bill increase, it still comes out of the same pockets. And that's where I really want to be exceedingly sensitive. Madam Administrator, do you want to make a quick one before?
Yes, very quick. It's just 3 points about the discussion that was just raised. I would say this administration, we don't want to be in a position, we understand what's happening with our residents, and we don't want to have to be in a position. When we brought the rate increase to the board the last time, it was because we knew the challenges that we were experiencing with the finances of the system. And so, just wanted to note that. Too, the cost of doing business it's increased since the pandemic. It's more than doubled our capital projects and the cost of those projects. And that relates to my third point, which is around the work of the Water Governance Task Force. Although the system, is maintained by the city of Baltimore, we do have other users and partners within our system as well. And, what we are looking at through the Water Governance Task Force is, what it looks like to have everyone pay their fair share and not just the residents of the city of Baltimore. And I do think that there's an opportunity for us to explore what that looks like, because you're right, our residents are shouldering the management of this system, although there are other people who benefit from our managing this and maintaining this system as well. And then final point, which is on the commercial accounts. So we've been pretty aggressive around those commercial accounts, and we've been able to collect about $80 million. There may still be some commercial accounts out there, and we will be aggressive about those commercial accounts, but the largest accounts have been collected on, which is now leading us to the quasi-government residential is kind of where we're focused. But again, I want to continue this conversation with you and members of the board, as well as with the broader community, because there's a lot of opportunity and room for improvement, and we want to be transparent about that.
No, I appreciate that. Other questions? I'm seeing Director Garbark.
I just want to very briefly say to one of your questions, Mr. President, we have been meeting with Synagro officials. We've had some very, very good discussions with them. We do believe we have a plan of action. We are going to meet on site nearly every day, and there's going to be some equipment that'll be installed on some of our different flows in there to try to decrease and try to address these issues. And we are going to be digging into the analysis to really identify and try to track the sources of where this is coming from. So we believe we have a plan of action. In terms of collections, I just want to be mindful that we have not really exercised this muscle in over a decade. So there's going to be a lot of very deliberate things we have to do as a department, as a city, to make sure that we do this right and that we do it fairly. There's been the Water for All, the other Water Accountability Acts, other things that we need to really work through so that we can make this robust. But to the mayor and the administrator's point, this is coming, and we have active plans that we're working on, and we'll be able to present them.
Yeah, and let me just say two things in response. Mr. Garbark, Director Garbark, I think it is very, very important that any contractor that works with the city is held accountable. We talk a lot on this board about cost overruns. We talk about the challenges with lowest bid. We talk about just the need to really work hard to rein in any contractor, no matter whether it's in your shop at DPW or in the police department or anywhere. And so I sincerely hope, and I know you all will have that conversation with Synagro, because it is extremely important as chair of this board that we hold folks accountable. Second, to your point, look, I hear you on what is coming in terms of collections. And again, we had a whole back and forth and preamble about this last year. Remember going back and forth a little bit with the city administrator and you, and just having a lot of discussion about the need to hold folks accountable. I think to your point, it is really important that the Water Accountability, the Water Equity Act, all of that is fully stood up. We know we've had some hearings where there are significant backlogs. And so it is going to be important that the agency is fully functional so that when we say to residents or businesses, hey, we need you to pay your bill, we're able to stand up in integrity and say, we have all of these systems, the council has passed laws, the administration has done work to try to support folks so that they don't end up in a vulnerable situation. And
Yes, sir.
I'm going to look forward to those continuing conversations. Any other questions? I'm going to make a closing statement.
I got one.
Mr. Mayor?
No, Mr. President, I just want to say, because she's been quiet today, that we have the chief of holding folks accountable sitting to the left of me, our city solicitor, Ebony Thompson. And when and if that we need to go that route, that we will, and we will continue to do that. And with those I also just want to note that even with all the great programs, we just have to understand that, again, that there are going to be folks who do not qualify for those programs, who are not paying their bills. There are going to be people that have gotten the assistance again and again and again and cannot get it anymore. And it is going to be tough decisions and tough times, and we all have to be prepared for that reality.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seeing no further questions, this item is noted by the board. This item, now having been noted by this board, I want to highlight the importance of good governance and oversight practices. Consistent with our City Council's focus in that area, I convened a hearing in the Committee of the Whole last September to examine the causes and consequences of the repeated delays in the issuance of the city's financial statement and single audit. During that hearing, Director of Finance committed that the city would issue the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR, on time, and I am extremely pleased to report that the city met its goal. And I'm a believer that when you ask folks to do something and they do it, you have an obligation, if you're being a good partner, to call that out. And so I do want to applaud the administration, and particularly Finance Director Moxton and the many folks who worked tirelessly at the Department of Finance to ensure the deadline was met. Thank you for your hard work. This is real progress in our financial and fiscal management, and it positions us to continue to strengthen our fiscal oversight and our annual budget processes. As we heard in detail today, the audit has documented 6 recurrent material weaknesses in our city's internal controls over financial reporting, including several that have recurred for more than 5 years. These recurrent weaknesses affect our water and wastewater billing, grants and cash management, IT security, and financial reporting. Obviously, these are all areas of great concern to this board and to the City Council, especially as we head toward budget season. Unfortunately, the audit has also documented a new and concerning material weakness involving our controls over debt accounting and debt compliance. Specifically, according to the audit in FY 2025, we did not maintain the level of debt service coverage in our wastewater utility fund that was required by our board covenants. I am confident that this administration can and will address these issues. The City Council, under my leadership, will continue to support that effort. I also want to be clear that we will resist any suggestion or proposal to increase rates further on residents to cover for deficiencies this report cited. The next item on the non-routine agenda is SB 2514501 from the Department of Audits. This is a request to note the biennial performance audit of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. On behalf of audits, we have City Auditor Josh Pash. Mr. Pash, welcome back. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I hope the PowerPoint goes a little bit better. Okay. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, honorable board members. My name is Josh Pash. I'm the city auditor, and I am here to present the biennial performance audit of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, and with the scope of evaluating controls over federal grant management, focusing on findings noted in the single audit. I want to thank MOHS and the audit team for their diligent work on this audit. Next slide. So I will be going over the audit objectives and scope, the risks that we identified, the audit methodology, background information, and our findings. Next slide. Okay, our audit scope was to evaluate the controls of our federal grants management and focusing on the findings in the single audit. We looked at fiscal years 24 and 23, and we focused on the housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, the HOPWA grant. You will notice some similarities to the single audit. Our goal here was to get more laser focused on specific controls that MOHS has and corrective action plans that are specific to their operations. Next slide. We identified the 3 major risks that we looked at in this audit: financial risk, operational risk, and fraud risk. Next. Okay, our audit methodology. So first, we conducted interviews and walkthroughs to gain an understanding of the processes and to evaluate the risk controls associated with the HOPWA grant. We will discuss those in finding 1. We reviewed the applicable HOPWA agreements and amendments to evaluate the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services compliance to programmatic requirements. I will discuss that in finding 1. We reviewed the grants administration compliance fiscal manual and housing assistance payment program manual to assess whether it sufficiently addresses the single audit findings for fiscal years 24 and 23 so that they can be resolved going forward. We judgmentally selected 60 samples, which include both initial certifications, some people going into the program, and recertifications, people continuing the program. Each sample was tested to validate the eligibility requirements were met, and I will discuss that in finding 1. We judgmentally selected a sample of 15 landlords with 30 renters invoices for the months in June 23 and June 24, randomly selected, to verify the renters' names, lease agreements, and invoice amounts matched payments recorded in Workday. We did not have any findings for that. We reviewed the grant closeout report sent to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for accuracy, timeliness, and in accordance with the HOPWA grant guidelines. I will do more than on finding 2. We judgmentally selected 15 samples to validate the funds drawn down by MOHS were accurate and timely. These are the amounts that we billed to the federal government. We did not have any findings there. We compared reported amounts reimbursed to MOHS in HUD's IDIS system to expenditures recorded in Workday to validate the accuracy, and I will discuss that in finding 2. Next slide. Okay, so we went back to the single audits for fiscal year 23 and 24, and we used those as a basis to what to focus on during our audit. So the first one that we looked at was noncompliance over cash management. In our testing, we noted that there was 5 exceptions, that the reconciliation to the drawdown amount in the federal database was not supported, and again, I will go over that in finding 2. We looked at the single audit finding over noncompliance for reporting. We noted that the federal financial report provided by MOHS management was not submitted in a timely manner. This is the report that MOHS sends to the federal government detailing the expenditures and the program. Next slide. We looked at the noncompliance over eligibility, which was a single audit finding, and we noted that MOHS was unable to provide evidence of case manager's review of the participant file for eligibility requirements. We noted that property inspections that were performed during the fiscal year were not supported by evidence. And then we noted that third-party verifications or documentation of expected income, assets, and unusual medical expenses, basically to support that the participant is eligible, that they were not have sufficient documentation. The single audit had 1 finding out of 60 in fiscal year 24 and 25 in fiscal year 23. MOHS management was unable to provide support to verify the rent calculation worksheet. Auditors were unable to verify reasonableness of the contracted monthly rent. Next slide. Okay, so those were the single audit findings we used as the basis for our testing and to see what improvements that the policies and procedures would cover there. To give some context, the HOPWA grants are awarded to MOHS on an annual basis. They get about $7 million a year. These grants are 3-year grants, so the funds can be spent in the year awarded and the next 2 years. So in fiscal year 23, they received about $7 million. That $7 million can be spent in 23, 24, and 25 on this program. In 24, they received another $7.2 million that can be expended in 24, 25, and 26. The number of landlords participating and the number of households assisted are those assisted in those fiscal years. You'll notice that in fiscal year 25, the number of grant activities is 0. That's because those households assisted of 414 were being paid for with the grants issued in 23 and 24. So as of this, there was no drawdowns of the fiscal year 25 amounts granted. Next slide. I do want to note that MOHS established the HAP program manual in December of 23, and that outlines procedures for eligibility, recertification, quality control, and required documentation. And in June of 2024, they established the Grant Administration Compliance and Fiscal Manual, and that outlines procedures for compliance with applicable fiscal requirements. Next slide. Okay, finding. Our first finding is that the Housing Assistance Payment Program eligibility reviews and quality controls are not being performed consistently. We noted that the procedures that are outlined in their HAP program manual are not being consistently followed. The initial enrollment and recertification files were incomplete. This is based on a sample of 30 for initial enrollment and 30 for recertification, and we noted that 6 did not have tenant rent recalculations. We noted that there's inconsistent review and approval of initial enrollment and recertification files. 18 did not have evidence of the program manager's review and approval. Next slide. We noted deficiencies in quality control. The quality control reviews are not independent. The program manager who approves the program participants basically does the quality control review. So there is not an independent second level review. And then as they are reviewing their own work, that reduces the effectiveness of the quality control as a control. The effect that we noted was that noncompliance to the provisions of the HAP requirements may result in repeat single audit findings and in recouping of grant funds. And then we looked into identify the causes. We noted staffing shortages and also insufficient training on the HAP program manual. So the HAP program manual was key, but our recommendation is going to be, next slide, right there. The recommendation is going to be to provide training on that and also oversight to consistently apply those program requirements, such as validating the manager's view of all recertifications, and then also confirming that the tenant rent calculation is documented and retained, and then to update the HAP program manual for an independent QC process and making that part of the policy. Next slide. Finding 2. They do not have adequate controls over the preparation, reconciliation, billing, and timely submission of the federal financial reports. This is the reports that are sent to the federal government to close out the program and basically compiles everything into one report. We noted that for the grant, we looked at 7 grants that were closed out, grant activities that were closed out in fiscal year 23 and 24. So these were not necessarily ones that had activity. Actually, they did not have activity, but these ones that were closed out by MOHS. For 6 of them, they were submitted late. The delays range from 122 to 936 days after the grant closeout deadlines. So basically, these many of these programs were finished in prior years and not closed out until fiscal year 23 or 24. We also noted that the general ledger does not support grant amounts billed. As we've mentioned multiple times, Workday and City Dynamics prior to that is the system of record. And so as those financial systems, they should be able to support all the amounts billed. There was no reconciliation between Workday and the HUD's IDIS system to make sure that those numbers tie out and that you can find your path from Workday to the amount billed to HUD. IDIS is the system that we use to bill HUD. And then we look for closeout packages to support the amounts billed, but those were missing. And then we looked at the FFR amounts, and we noticed that they do not match the general ledger. So they did not have reconciliations, and then when we tried to do our own reconciliation, we did not see a match between the FFR reported and the Workday general ledger. Next slide. Okay. We also noted that the city billed less than awarded. So for those 7 grants that were closed out in fiscal 23 and fiscal 24, the total grants awarded by HUD were $21,152,433 per the IDIS system. So that's what was actually billed through the HUD billing system was $20,235,868. And as we can see, $916,000 of grants awarded for those 7 grants were not billed to those grants. So we did not recoup those funds, basically left them on the table. The effect. So unbilled amounts increase pressure on the city's general fund and may limit services provided to the public. I do want to note that this would not be obviously felt because each of the grants covers 3 years. So the funds were covered by other grants. However, there was amounts that were awarded to us that we could have billed against. Second bullet. Untimely, inadequately documented reporting limits the ability to verify expenditures and complete timely grant closeouts. In other words, if we're tracking everything timely, everything's documented timely, then we'll be able to make sure that we're complying and billing the federal government the correct amounts and have support for all of that. And then third bullet, regularly reconciling billed expenditures in Workday to IDIS is necessary to make the grant closeout process effective. We reviewed 13 active HOPWA grant activities with expenditure in the audit period. So this is separate from the 7 that I mentioned earlier. The 7 were grants that were closed out and did not have activity during the period. These are grant activities that we charged to the grant. And then we noted that MOHS does not reconcile the grant revenues recorded in Workday to the IDIS for quarterly billing to the grantor. So not only is there not a closeout reconciliation, but for each bill, there should be a reconciliation as well to make sure that that amount billed ties to our general ledger. So when we looked for the causes, we noted the grant administration, compliance, and fiscal manager, which covers these processes, lacks clear procedures for tracking report deadlines. As I noted before, the deadlines were missed for 6 of the 7. There no internal review process for FFR submission and noncompliance with Baltimore City's record retention. So the city's record retention requires that we keep supporting documentation for what we bill the federal government. The federal government also requires that. And then the third bullet we noted was that staff turnover and inadequate training during the transition to the new accounting software Workday led to unreliable general ledger records and misclassified transactions. Okay. Finding 2, recommendation. We recommend that MOHS update and implement the MOHS Grant Administration Compliance Fiscal Manual to track the FFR deadlines, to strengthen the internal control process around those, to make sure they're accurate and timely submitted, to establish written procedures for outlining steps for preparing, reviewing, and approving FFRs, making sure that there's all the supporting documentation there, including reconciliation of expenditures between Workday, IDIS, and the supporting documentation prior to submitting, and then that include in the fiscal manual formal quarterly reconciliation process that compares grant activity recorded in IDS to Workday, requiring staff to document and explain any time differences or variance. So basically, not only making sure that our GL system Workday agrees to what we're billing the federal government at the year end, but also as they're doing billings to making sure that that all ties out. And then there will, of course, be timing differences where items that hit Workday in a specific period might have been in a prior period and not yet billed, so that the billing can show what periods that the expenditures occurred, and also to identify that they are part of the period of service that is part of the grant activity. Okay, I will take any questions.
Auditor Pash, first off, thank you again for the audit. Obviously, the findings in this audit echo the broad findings in the single audit. There are deficiencies in our control over the management of grants. What concerns you most about the specific issues you uncovered in this audit, and what do those concerns say about our ongoing effort to address material weaknesses in grants management across the city?
Right, so I would say that one of the key things is making sure that when we are billing the federal government and we're basically capturing charges and costs for the different grant programs, that those that are recorded in Workday are reconciled to our billing, so that we know that all of our expenses that we incurred are being billed when they're eligible, and that we're not billing additional ones, and that we have supporting documentation over that. So when the federal government comes in looking, we can have all our I's dotted and T's crossed. I think the other one is just basically tracking the overall, that it's easy when you have multiple grant activities covering the same program, having challenges tracking which activities and charges we're billing to which grant activity. And so that, I think, would resolve the issue of not billing the grants that were closed out by $916,000, making sure that basically every dollar that's offered to us, we get to get reimbursed for.
Understood. Other questions from the board? Yeah. Okay. All right. We are then going, thank you, Mr. Pash. We are going to go to the agency response on behalf of MOHS. We have Director Ernestina Simmons. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Director Simmons, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Ernestina Simmons, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. Very nice to see you all. All right, next slide. So our office charge is really to serve those that are experiencing homelessness and those that are at risk of homelessness. For 2025, our agency was able to serve over 20,000 Baltimore City residents in our emergency shelters, our outreach teams, as well as in our permanent housing programs. We was able to serve 4,175 people with permanent housing. In that, we was able to see 1,119 people exit from homelessness. And the last one would be 803 people were served in this HOPWA program that we're talking about today. Next slide. Part of what this program is designed to be able to provide housing stability for people that are living with HIV or AIDS. One of the items that was noted about this program that makes it a little bit more complex than most programs is it operates over 3 years of periods of performance and eligibility for this grant. So part of this program, it serves 800 clients annually. What we do in this program is short-term rental assistance, permanent rental assistance, and supportive services. But another item that just was not noted yet was that this program also receives supplemental funding from Ryan White. MOHS operates as both a direct grantee for Baltimore City, but we are also responsible for administering these funds for surrounding jurisdictions such as Anne Arundel County, Baltimore County, Carroll County, Howard County, Harford County, and Queen Anne's County. An important note as we go through this presentation is that these grants operated between 2018 and 2023. Next slide. We took a look at the single audits, the trending. I want to highlight here just the work of the MOHS team. I want to thank my deputy. I want to thank our chief of fiscal services. A lot of work has been done at MOHS as is related to these single audit findings, which is reflected here. 2023, our office had 1 new findings and 4 repeat findings. Those findings have been open since 2021. Fiscal year 2024, we had 1 repeat finding closed. We had 4 repeat findings. However, as the auditor before me noted, there was improvements. As you can see, most of those items went from 14, 15 files to 1 of 60 files being noted with a concern in 2024. In 2025, we were able to close 2 of those repeat findings. One of the findings that was closed was also noted in this auditor's report as a finding. That is no longer a finding in our single finding audits. Next slide. Our housing assistance PAT program, as I stated previously, you can see 14 of 40 in 2023 versus 1 of 60. That finding is closed for MOHS. Some of the corrective actions that we've been able to meet was the independent quality control. Part of our organization, we have a program compliance team that sits separate from the Hopwood team, so they are going to be monitoring this program that was put in place December of 2025. The other item is about program manager review. Standard monitoring size is 10%. For us, we're making this a 30% requirement for our agency. And again, this practice was put into place in November of 2025. Next slide. The federal financial reports that was noted that was delayed for the 6 grants, all of those grants operated between 2018 and 2023. Our agency became compliant with all of those submissions in 2023/2024. We currently do not have any outstanding financial reports that are due. Some of the actions that we have implemented is just improving on this grant closeout process as it's related to a calendar, being fully aware of when these items are due and the requirements that's in them. We put that inside of our Baltimore Fiscal Compliance Manual. It will be fully effective as of March of 2026. We've shifted our process a little bit about our internal review and approval workflow process as of November of 2025. What that means is that I'm now on this workflow. I'm a part of the approval path as it's related to signing off on the reconciliation process before it is fully submitted. And the last one is the required reconciliation monthly between workday in the IDIS system. One of the items that I just want to note is there's a 3-step process to this. Your subrecipients submit reimbursement, MOHS pays the dollar amounts, but what that means after it is paid, then MOHS goes into IDIS, we recapture the money. We do reconciliation between what we're paying the provider and what they've expensed and what we're paying back. The item that's been noted and talked about quite a bit has to do with the reconciliation between workday and what we receive back from IDIS. That is something that our office, we've implemented a new process to do that on a monthly basis. However, that's been in place since December. Next slide. The report noted the $916,000 that was left on each of those grants, and it's 7 grants. Across the 7 grants, the total was $916. The things I'll just note about that is that the City of Baltimore can only submit reimbursement for these grants. It's about services that was rendered. Some of the items that can cause an underspend could look like it takes people longer to find a unit. Lease-up times are different for people, their staff turnover, so all of those things can lead to an underspend. But I want to note that MOHS did not miss any performance benchmarks. The amount of targeted households we promised to serve was served. And what we'll do in the future as it's related is just our pre-closeout reconciliation checklist. It's just going to allow us to take a final look at items before we actually close them out. For all federal grants, you have an ending period of performance. However, your providers have 45 additional days in order to submit their final reimbursements. And so then MOHS then files a final report by 90 days of the closeout time period. So there are some differences in timing that's always going to be related to grants. And the last note is, again, just a note of gratitude to the auditor's team. This was a complex grant. And it's a lot of work. It's very hard looking at a project that has multiple operating years of performance. So I want to thank the comptroller's team, Mr. Walton, and my team just for all of your hard work and late nights on looking at this program. Questions?
Yes, ma'am. First off, thank you for your work. The audit found that several final federal financial reviews closed out in FY23 and 24 were submitted late, with delays ranging from 122 to 936 days after grant closeout deadlines. What were the consequences to the city of these delayed submissions, and what is the status of the submissions required for the fiscal year that just ended?
No impact for the city. MOHS has no outstanding reports. We don't have any open findings with HUD, which is our grantor on this program. So there are no, outside of the fact that you want to submit things timely. And so these programs was operating from 2018. And I think, as everyone know, coming in, that was a part of assessing of what needed to be done, what needed to be submitted. That was amongst the items, but we don't have anything else that is due.
Understood. Let me also ask, what is the status of the recommendations that the auditor has made, and how long do you believe it will take to fully implement these measures, and more broadly to ensure that we have controls in place that will prevent further findings in the area of grant management?
As is related to finding number one, we put those in place last year, and you can see that reflected in a single audit for 2025 because that is no longer a finding for our agency. And the last one, as it's related to the federal financial reporting, we've made that update in our manual, so we don't anticipate that being a repeat finding for us as well.
Other questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none. This item is now noted. Thank you, Director Simmons. The next item on the non-routine agenda is a request to approve an extension and increase for a contract SB 26100095 from the Office of Equity and Civil Rights in the Department of Procurement. The contract extension is with a web-based tracking system for police misconduct cases for $8,334.90 with a term ending June 30th, 2026. On behalf of procurement, we have, I thought we had Chief Manny. No? Okay. Are you going first? No. No? Okay. Madam Civil Rights. Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your attention.
And Ms. Green, if you could just state your name and your
absolutely.
title for the...
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Amber Green. I'm the Director of the Office of Equity and Civil Rights. I'm also here joined with our Chief of the Police Accountability Division, Marlon Marion, and Carissa Mattern, our policy analyst, who have been integral to this work. So pursuant to Article 1, Section 1113 of the Baltimore City Code, the Office of Equity and Civil Rights must maintain the records of the Administrative Charging Committee and the Police Accountability Board. Since March 2023, the OECR Police Accountability Division has used CMTS through the company Wingswept to manage complaint case data for the work of the ACC, and due to the limitations of the current program, OECR has decided to select a new vendor. The current contract that we are asking for an extension for ends on March 28, 2026. However, we've requested an extension while we request a new vendor. I will make note that we do have the option for a one-year renewal within this period, so we still are within this time. But at this point, we're only asking for a 3-month extension while we look for a new vendor. So on the First slide, if you could go back to the previous slide. Thank you. So again, just that period of where we're looking for that increase, contract amount is $8,334 to extend the contract period from March 27, 2026 to June 30th while we select a new vendor. We can go to the next slide. In terms of where we are, I can't see. So the Board of Estimates approved the contract for Wing Swept on March 15, 2023, for the value of $100,792 with a period of 3 years starting March 28, 2023 to March 27, 26, with a 1-year renewal option. So the continuation of the case management system, a contract with Wingsup, is to allow us to continue the operations while the agency completes our IFB process for the new software. This continuance would ensure that we would not be a disruption to our work to continue that of the Administrative Charging Committee, which OECR directly supports, as well as ensuring that we process complaints of police misconduct filed by members of the public. Pursuant to the Maryland Annotated Code, Public Safety, Section 3113, a complaint received prior to October 1st, 2025 has a 1 year and 1 day to go through the extensive complaint process. Cases received after October 1st, 2025 have 395 days to go through the complaint process. And because of these statutory deadlines and the ACC hearing on average 23 cases per week, any disruption to our case management system would be detrimental to our processes, resulting in the expiration of complaints. And once a complaint expires, no further action can be taken by any involved party. I'll take you through the quick timeline that I shared a little bit, but just so that we're here, the Maryland Police Accountability Act was passed in 2021. MPA went into effect in 2022 of June. On March 28, 2023, OECR acquired the CMTS system that we are currently using. The first ACC meeting was held using that system on June 13, 2023. And on February 6, 2026, we requested the BOE contract extension. And then this month, we've also assigned the IFB to a procurement officer to get into the process of selecting a new vendor. And again, just to reiterate, our contract ends this month. So that is the conclusion of our presentation, and happy to answer any questions or if there's anything that you, sir, would like to say, gentlemen. If there's anything that you wanted to add, thank you.
Are there any questions from the board? Ms. Green, can you commit that when you acquire this new program, you will work to ensure both that OECR's data is easily accessible to the public and that the final outcomes of the entire police accountability process are included in this public-facing data?
Mm-hmm. Sure, thank you for the question. So in acquiring the new system, that's one of the things that we're hopeful that we can try to maintain. A critical component for the new system is to create hopefully some sort of external dashboard for public use, to be able to address some of the concerns that were brought up during several of our public hearings about just understanding the data more specifically. So that would help us. There are some limitations in terms of who we can go to for these types of systems, and so that's why we're really focused on trying to get something that works to be able to talk across systems between OECR and the police department so we can effectively, illustrate where we are from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, I know there's been concerns about data sets integrating together, about sort of lack of accountable data for public or any of the boards that oversee this to have access to. What specifically would it take for us to create data sets that provide outcome results? And can you commit to working with BPD to create a unified public data set that includes the final outcomes of both internal and external complaints?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So any outcome reporting must be developed in alignment with our governing laws, statutory requirements, and the city's data governance standards. So the new system that we hope to acquire would provide improved data infrastructure, organization with the intent of furthering our outcome-related data reporting in a meaningful and accurate way that would be beneficial to all stakeholders. We have a very good working relationship with BPD. We meet with them regularly to review these data sets so that we're in alignment with what we have. So I would say that, that would continue that work. We're just
Right.
looking for a more efficient system that will provide us what we need. And there are some limitations with the CMTS system now being able to pull data at specific points and having to manually enter these things. And so we're hoping that with, a new vendor, we'll be able to do some of the actual, the additional data inquiries that we've received.
And so you all would be able to do that work. And just to be clear, is it your position that BPD is the only possible source of data on the outcomes of police accountability procedures, including procedures that have moved through the administrative charging committees, the ACC?
Well, we have 6 law enforcement agencies that are that we are responsible for in that system. BPD has the largest, so they are responsible for the end process, which I think you all have asked related to like trial boards and those outcomes.
Yeah.
So those would specifically be things that BPD continually tracks that we work with them on. But they are the main, we hear the points, as we've shared before. The ACC process and the ACC members are only responsible for determining discipline. And so once that discipline is given to the law enforcement agency, the law enforcement agency takes that and applies that. And the officer, as you know, can either accept that judgment or determine to go to a trial board in that instance. So there is a long process, but there isn't like a specific point in time that, we'd be able to get a lot of the outcomes because they occur over different years. So that's what we're trying to correct now.
Understood. I'll just say this is an issue I know the council is very concerned about, making sure we have quality integrated data sets for any of the relevant boards and particularly for the public to be able to see. It is really important to me that when we think about local control of the police department, when we think about all the work that's been done around our consent decree, when we think about just the need for real immediate transparency, that we have high quality data, that folks can understand what happens in these types of decisions. Of course, respecting any sort of legal requirements that would prevent certain cases from being spoken about, but it is just really important that as we continue to make gains operationally within the department and in your office, that the public has access to this kind of data.
Yes, we are hopeful that with a new system in place that we'll be able to provide additional data inquiries and have that more up-to-date information that people have been looking to get.
I appreciate that. Any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. But Madam Clerk, oh, I'm sorry. No, on this one, I am also going to abstain. Yep, because we have a bill related to this. I'm going to ask for us to revote. My apologies. Could we entertain a motion for this item?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstain. The ayes have it. Please note abstention from myself. This item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Green. The next item on the non-routine agenda is SB 2610443 from the Comptroller's Office. This is a request to note a report from the Mayor's Office of Employment Development on local hiring law. On behalf of MOED, we have Special Assistant John Preston Ford. Special Assistant Ford, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Cohen. I'm John Ford, Special Assistant to the Director, Mackenzie Garvin of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. here to present this report on compliance with the city's local hiring law from vendors. Next slide, please. So this report's going to take some explanation. So I'm going to go through it very quickly the next couple of slides, but this is following up on an agreement that we made when presenting the follow-up to the biannual audit of local hiring from the audits department, that we would send a report of the most actionable examples of noncompliance, or the largest examples of noncompliance, to the Board of Estimates clerk starting last year. And so this is the first of those to show up on the Board of Estimates. Next slide, please. So we had to set some thresholds for noncompliance to show up on this report. It's not a full report of all of the compliance metrics on all the vendors and all the contracts in the city. So we chose some thresholds along with the comptroller's office, including a dollar threshold and a compliance threshold that identified about 5% of the contractor-contract relationships that we have in any given month over the last 6 months of the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and sent those over. Next slide, please. To briefly summarize the context of this report with all the other actions that are taken when a vendor does not send in a monthly employment report or does not hire enough city residents based on the goal 51% or send in job postings. This is in the context of, first, a missing monthly report letter that goes out to all of those vendors if they, according to their start and end date on their contract, are expected to submit a monthly report on their employment. And they do not within the first 5 business days of the month, as set in the rules and regulations. They get a letter from our compliance officer that also conducts a monthly review of employment, where if a contractor committed to expecting new hires and they get partway through their contract and have not posted any positions yet, or if they're halfway through their contract and are not at that 51% threshold, then the compliance officer will follow up with that as well. There are then quarterly local hiring review committee meetings with agency stakeholders across all the major awarding agencies. That quarterly report reviews any changes to the local hiring process, review any issues overarching across the city, and review waivers. And then finally, there's a biannual compliance letter that gets sent to the point of contact from that review committee, as well as the agency head, with all of the compliance metrics for all their contractors and contracts. Next slide, please. So this report showing up on the Board of Estimates is of 69 examples. That is approximately 5% of the relationships of contractors and contracts and subcontractors that we have in any given month. For example, in December of 2025, we had 1,359 active contractor contracts, and we expect to report for every single one. So those 69, 68 of them were for not completing all 6 of the 6 expected reports for the first half of fiscal year 2026. And that is important because without those reports, we have no visibility and no knowledge of their compliance with the local hiring 51% percentage, or their compliance with sending job postings over to our career centers and our agency for recruitment. So there was one report on there that was compliant with sending in their monthly reports and fell short of that 51% goal, but the rest were a lack of data. Can we go to the next slide, please? So following this report going on to the Board of Estimates agenda, the CAO's office and agencies across the city have been working to respond. I have some stats that I pulled last night before this. If we go to the next slide, I'll go over those. Of those 69 vendors, according to the CAO's list last night, 6 of them had not yet been actioned by the agency. 44 were pending a vendor response. 4 were being flagged by the agency as not applicable, meaning that there was a reason why the local hiring law does not apply to this contract that was not identified at the time when we were setting it up. and 15 of them were marked by the agency as resolved. We're still pulling some of that data. It takes some time to get all of that into the system and then pull it out of the system and run the analysis again, but we will keep everybody up to date. Next slide, please. So if we look at the orange line here, that's the one that focuses on the percentage of local hire reports submitted. And I call this out just to say that there's a clear follow in the trend toward the amount of attention and focus that's put on collecting these reports from our vendors. The majority of this is based on voluntary compliance, and we have found that more communication and more effort on this to get those reports does clearly result in more reports submitted. In the first half of that, we see a gradual upward trend from fiscal year 2021 through 2023. As we expanded the office, we brought on a compliance officer and a coordinator. And then we had a period of a combination of switching to a new contract or new software vendor and some turnover in the office that led to a small decline in that percentage of reports submitted from our vendors. And then finally, this period of increase again as we turned that around and acquired the new vendor. It is ultimately the responsibility of the vendors to submit these reports. MOED is merely in a coordinating and communication capacity. But we have found that more attention from the city on those vendors that dictates how seriously those vendors take submitting those monthly reports and that compliance rate. That is all I have. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Special Assistant. Your office provided the board a spreadsheet that shows that there are 70 or so contractors who are out of compliance with local hiring requirements. The column showing the reason seems to show that all except for one of them are for missing reports. Is it accurate that all of those are only missing reports, or is there another reason MOED found them to be out of compliance? And follow-on question, do we know what their local hiring attainment has been in the reporting period?
Great question. Without those reports, and it's important to note if they showed up on this report, they missed all of their reports in the reporting period. And so we have no visibility into their attaining of those hiring goals. If it was a partial reporting issue, then we do report that in that biannual compliance letter, but it did not show up in this report to the board.
Okay. My follow-up there is, what are we doing about that? How do we ensure that folks are fully held accountable to meet our goals?
For this report, and since this is going to be an ongoing process now with the Comptroller's Office and future reports that go to the Board of Estimates, I believe they're being taken line by line by the agencies and coordinated by the City Administrator's Office to make sure that each one of those is individually addressed. And there are multiple other contracts that have either smaller dollar amounts or less severe issues with the reporting submittals, like missing 1 month or being late on submissions. Those are all going to be on the biannual full letter that goes out to each agency. So I think that with all of this attention on the reporting for local hiring, then I think that letter is where we see in the future making this process a lot tighter.
Okay. One contractor shows that they report falling short of their goal. Do we know how close they were to meeting the goal? Do we have any visibility on them?
I do. So that vendor had hired, according to their addresses that they submitted with their new hire data, 20 of their new hires they could show to be city residents out of 58 total hires in that period, and that is short about 10 hires.
Got it. I'll just say, obviously, this is very important. Commitments to local hire, making sure Baltimoreans are getting the work when we do any kind of contracting. So hope to see increased accountability, especially as it relates to our local hiring standards, as well as all the other requirements that we have. Other questions from
Yeah.
the board? Deputy.
Thank you. You actually asked my question, but I do want to, again, emphasize what you said earlier. This is the first time there's been a submission of this type of report to the Board of Estimates in which MOD is reporting on vendors and contracts that are not in compliance with the city's local hiring laws. So thank you for following up on that recommendation from a prior audit to supply that information. And I echo the council president's concern and hope that that this type of information, being transparent with it, will mean that there'll be greater efforts for corrective action and actually compliance in the future. So thank you. Thank you, MOD.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Other questions from the board? All right. Special Assistant Ford, thank you for your presentation. Seeing no further questions, this item is noted by the board. The next two items on the non-routine agenda are substantially similar and involve the same agency, so I will call them together. They are both unauthorized procurement from the municipal post office. The first is under SB 2610006, and the second is under SB 2610110. On behalf of the procurement office, we have Chief Manny. Chief Manny, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Madam CA, honorable board members. Adam Manning, your Chief Procurement Officer. These two items for the municipal post office are for Quadrant Leasing. This is a company that supplies sole source specialized mailing equipment and supplies for the city. In the past, what would happen with these, the dollar values fell under our small dollar threshold, and we just made direct payments to them. As time has gone on, of course, prices have gone up and have increased, and they've now gone over that small dollar threshold, which requires us via process to have purchase orders in place. As we've been going through the process, we came across two instances where we didn't have purchase orders in place for 2 periods of time, and we are coming before the board for permission to make these payments and continue moving forward. If I'm correct, we have from the post office, there are POs now in place to continue with this. It was just one of those things. The total value between the two instances was a little over $15,000. And if you have a question about the equipment, we can ask, or the services, we can answer that for you also.
Thoughts, questions? Okay. Hearing none, I will call these items for separate votes. First, I have a motion to approve the unauthorized procurement listed under SB 2610006.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The item is approved. Next, do I have a motion to approve the unauthorized procurement listed under SB 2610110?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This item is approved.
Thank you, sir.
All right. As there is no more business before the board, we will now adjourn this meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026 at 9 a.m. I thank everyone for participating and tuning in.
We're ready to start the bid openings. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Estimates bid openings for March 4th, 2026. My name is Jay Hardy, and I am the Legislative Affairs Coordinator in the Office of the Comptroller. Today, I'll be filling in for our Chief of Staff, Celeste Amato, who usually does this. We have no addenda to share today, and we have one contract that's been bidden on. The department is the Department of Transportation, and the contract number is TR19018 for the replacement of retaining wall on Dartmouth Road. We have 2 bids on this contract today. First bid is from Allied Contractors Incorporated at 204 East Preston Street, Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay. TR
19018, Department of Transportation, replacement of retaining wall. Allied Contractors with a bid bond. Total bid, $3,675,605. That's $3,675,605.00. And again, that's with a bid bond for Allied Contractors, an original and one duplicate.
All right, and for the record, that bid amount was $3,675,605 with a duplicate, an original, and a bond.
Yes.
All right. Pass this back.
Okay.
All right, and for the second bid, that is with Civil Construction LLC, and I'll pass it over to Audrey.
Thank you.
Civil Construction LLC with a bid bond. Total amount of bid is $4,165,977. That's $4,165,977.
All right, and just for the record, I'm going to repeat that. That bid amount was $4,165,977. We have one duplicate and one original, and there is a bond on that. Pass that back. All right, and I believe that is all we have today. Thank you, guys.